gospel needs to be preached everywhere because the Lord will come back when the gospel is preached. But if we just sit in church, the gospel doesn't get preached. We kind of got to go outside the church to preach the gospel. So we say, hey, let us preach the gospel. And that's the big thing we want to do. The next thing we want to do is raise up ordinary people. Ordinary people as workers.
Right?
Yeah, and the whole idea of that was that we used to raise up theologians and highly educated kind of people with super charismatic talents, and everybody's drawn to them. And we say, no, we want to flip it around. We want to empower ordinary people to go and do the work of the Lord, instead of having all these fancy people and just sitting at somebody on a pulpit. So we're flipping it around, because that's what the Lord does. So we're imitating Jesus in the way He's running His ministry. The next thing we want to do is start small groups. Start small groups, or help churches to start small groups. That's the other thing. And then we want to do multiplication. So that's the vision of why we're running this training, is to equip people to spread the gospel. So wherever they're training, and to do it ourselves. Equip ordinary people, really ordinary people. Like you go to villages in Rwanda, you're not going to have people that maybe have got theological degrees, and because that's where we went to as a church. We started moving towards, you need to have this education. No, you don't. You just need to be with Jesus. And that's what we change it around. And then helping to show them how to run small groups. So how do you run a small group? How do you start a small group? And how do you then multiply your small groups? And wherever your talents might be, we don't tell everybody they have to do it. So we say to people, well, here's one way of doing it, and you can use it, and that will hopefully equip you with starting another group or doing something like that. So that's what Jesus did. Which of these things didn't Jesus do? He did all of them. So that's basically our vision. So what we do basically then is we did say we empower. In other words, we hand the baton to people and say, you can do that. We mentor. And the mentorship group is more like a personal one-on-one. So mentorship is, you go to church, but you don't really get mentored, because nobody is getting together with you and say, hey, how's you doing? Try this, try that, or what are you struggling with? So we have this mentorship thing. So we created mentorship groups online. We've got the French one going, we've got a Saturday going, we've got these mentorship groups going where we really talk heart to heart with one another and mentor one another. So it's a mentorship thing. It's not just a group training, but also personal mentorship. And then we do workshops. So that's the next thing we do. So all these things we achieve by empowering people, mentoring, and workshops. And then we also respond to needs. So we look at the needs of people. Like, we can't just say, we ministry people and we love them, but we're not going to care when they're hungry. So it's a little bit like, okay, if I do the gospel, I also need to look at the needs at the same time. So we're busy during lockdown. We would say, okay, in Rwanda, these guys are dying. So let's send them food. It's not really that's not what our goal here, but we need to look at the needs as well. Can't just say the Lord and not look at needs. So look at the needs, and then listen to the Lord's direction, because maybe we don't have all the ideas. Maybe we have a few things wrong. Maybe the Lord wants to do something different. So we can't say, okay, this is exactly the moral, 100%, because maybe the Lord wants us to do something else. So we're going to train. We've got 4 trainings syllabus, if you can call it that, but I don't want to be too hard lined about that. But there's 4 things actually 5 things we focus on. The first, of course, is God's Word. So whatever we teach, it's got to be in line with God's Word. And we took God's Word, and from God's Word, there's a few things that we have broken out to. So we took one thing and we took in 4 fields. Then we also have the elementary teachings. I'm not going to write it all. And we have the Lord's Prayer. And the last one is maturity teaching. Okay, so those are the things that we then end up teaching, and the way we teach it is this way, and why we're teaching is that. So we're going to teach the Bible, because whatever we teach needs to be in line with God's Word. So we're going to do that. We're going to do 4 fields, and then we have elementary teachings. 4 fields talks about, briefly, just to answer that, is it talks about how the ministry works. 4 fields is about that you start off basically with an empty field, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more.
Sure.
In a second. It's about finding an empty field. It's about sowing seeds. It's about growing people and starting groups. So it's like happening in 4 fields. Like somebody that needs to do agriculture, you need to find the land, you need to sow seed, you need to grow the seed, you need to harvest. So it's using that principle that Jesus followed.
Yeah.
And the elementary teachings is what is the basics that the Bible teach we should know and be able to teach others. In short, what does the Bible say is the basics? And we make sure that we are thoroughly equipped in those basics so we can teach others. And that is based on Hebrews chapter 6. And we'll go into that. And the Lord's Prayer is just a Lord's Prayer. It's all about connecting with God. And how do we teach people to build a relationship with God? And what did Jesus teach about that? And everything is very practical. So it goes into a very practical mode. And maturity teaching is, okay, what about if I'm now a Christian? What's my next step? Because a lot of times we become a Christian, we say, okay, what now? Now I'm a Christian, I'm saved. What now? What is it? What's the next thing? Where do I need to grow to now? And that's what maturity teaching is all about. So it's 4 things.